Friends, Greg Newmaster coming at you again with another action figure review. I pre-ordered this figure from Big Bad Toy Store. I got an email the other day saying that it was shipping. I thought this was bizarre because in the chain of figures, I felt like this one would come out not for a long time because of all the back orders. I pre-ordered this guy a long time ago, but today I have Mafex Magneto, Age of Apocalypse, and man, am I excited to finally get this figure. It was just such a surprise. And friends, if you like my videos, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to build up my channel, and I just really enjoy doing this. So anyhow, back to Magneto. You know, there's some comic books that change your life when you're growing up. And I can remember the year was 1995. I had walked into my local comic book store in Pittsburgh at the time, and it was called Bad Guy Comics. It doesn't exist anymore. Rest in peace, Bad Guy Comics, because man, did I have a lot of fond memories from that comic book store. But I remember walking in and seeing it on the shelf, this comic right here, X-Men Alpha. And, you know, like I said, there's just some comic books that stick with you, some that just make such an imprint on your soul that they just last forever because they're just such great stories. And I am forever an X-Men fan, even before the Avengers came along and the movies made them cool. But before that, it was always X-Men. And especially if you were a kid who grew up in the 90s and you grew up with the cartoon and just how wonderful that show was. And then the video games, there was always I'm from Pittsburgh, so our local amusement park is called Kennywood. And as soon as you would walk into Kennywood, there would be an arcade there to the right. And they would have the original X-Men arcade game where you could be Wolverine, Colossus, Storm, Nightcrawler, and I think it's Dazzler. What a lame character to throw in with the core X-Men. But it was a great game. But it was all X-Men, late 80s, early 90s, and man, were they awesome. And man, was the Age of Apocalypse one of the greatest X-Men stories of all time. For some people, it's Days of Future Past. They like that better. They grew up with it, and it was the first time they sort of messed with altering the timeline. But and then they had Cable, of course, and all the stuff with Apocalypse before the Age of Apocalypse. But man, what a great epic story. One of the best X-Men stories of all time. Professor Xavier's son, Legion, goes back in time, uses his mutant powers to travel back in time to kill Magneto. So the X-Men wouldn't have to deal with the repercussions. He was... In a twisted way, he wanted to help his father's dream that mutants and humans could live together in harmony. But instead, what happens is Magneto jumps in the way, Professor Xavier jumps in the way, being in line with his character when Legion was going to kill Magneto. And Xavier dies, and this creates a whole new alternate timeline in which we get the Age of Apocalypse, where the X-Men, as we knew them, didn't exist, and Apocalypse attacks early, takes over pretty much the entire world, keeping his home base in New York City, just doing a mass genocide of humans and most of the superheroes, and all that remains is Magneto and his rogue band of X-Men. And it's just such a compelling story. Wolverine is very dark and different. He's Weapon X. He's missing a hand. Cyclops is a bad guy. He and Havoc actually serve Apocalypse instead of being the field leader of the X-Men. Rogue and Magneto are married and they have a child. Sunfire is just vicious and dark, but has a way cooler look, as you can see him right there. We're introduced to new characters such as Blink. Nightcrawler is different. Wolverine and Jean Grey are together, which was awesome. Sabretooth is a good guy. And then we're introduced to Wild Child. And Colossus. Like, everybody has a darker edge, and it's just a very interesting story. And if you've never read it, I highly recommend it. All that to say that this character, this version of Magneto, is my second favorite X-Men of all time. Sorry guys, Wolverine's #1. I just love Wolverine. I can't help it. I know he's in everything. He's overused, blah, 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 blah. But Wolverine's #1. Age of Apocalypse Magneto is #2. The reformed version of Magneto, the Great Leader, and so on and so forth. And it was a crossover between all the X titles, and all the X titles got renamed. Uncanny X-Men became Astonishing X-Men. There was a prequel called X-Men Chronicles. The regular X-Men title got renamed Amazing X-Men. There are Gambit and the Externals. There was a Generation X title, but I forget what that was called too. But it was just a giant major crossover, so it was awesome. On to the figure. So Mafex is my favorite. They're currently my favorite action figure designer. They just have the best look. They have the best articulation. They're not 100% perfect, but they just keep getting better and better, and they're my favorite. And when I saw that this figure was coming out, I just had to get it because, man, am I a Magneto fan. And this design, if you can see the design right here, which is going off of the Astonishing X-Men look in this cover right here. This is done by Joe Madureira. And I just loved his art too. He was a premier artist in the mid-90s and early 2000s. I still think he's one of the best. But yeah, so Age of Apocalypse, here's Magneto. Let's bust this baby open and you guys can experience this figure with me. So here's the front of the packaging. Here's the bottom. Here's that metallic sticker. So you know it's the real deal and it's not a bootleg. Great picture on the side there. Here is the other side. And there's that Joe Mad image of Magneto. Just the redesign of Magneto too. I loved this redesign. And I'll get into that as I open the figure. Well, let's check him out. Pop him open here. You know, the Mafex figures, the SH Figure Arts figures, I mean, all of them these days are collector's items, but you want to be careful to open them and make sure that you don't lose any of the pieces. Here is the stand that all Mafex figures comes with. I'm not going to open this up just because I just want to open the figure. I'm going to try to pop this bubble open carefully so all the 8 million accessories don't go all over the place. And let's bring this out. And Mafex has done just such a great job lately, especially with the X-Men figures, really paying homage to the Jim Lee era. So let's pull Magneto out here. Oh man, I love this cloth cape. I love the cloth cape. And as you guys can notice on the Age of Apocalypse redesign, Magneto's cape is traditionally purple in the original design, but the Age of Apocalypse gives him a red cape. And this is a really thick cloth. Feels very thick, and it's shiny and shimmering. I don't know if you guys can see that on camera. Probably not. So he also has a little piece of plastic there in his crotch so the paint won't rub. So I'm going to pull that out here just so you guys can see that. But like I said, I was shocked when I got the email that this figure had come in. And he just looks great. I don't like... So they could have glued this piece on here. You know, his sort of like belt thing that he wears. He always has this big purple waistband that goes around. So I may actually glue that because I don't like how it's separated there, but you can push it down and it looks good. The hair. So also too, I love the sculpt that the redesign of Magneto is he has long hair and the helmet is much longer. Like if you look at the ends of the helmet there's the spikes. They're nice and long. I'll show you. Here's a more oh, and I dropped it. But here is a more, this is a more traditional Magneto helmet. And if you can see that it's a little bit shorter, let me get a better figure. Here is this is the Hasbro Magneto helmet. So it's the lower end of the helmet comes down past the chin, and it looks like a Spartan helmet. So I just really loved that redesign, and it's real sharp looking. And I love, here's the other head sculpt of Magneto. He has like this nice long hair and just looks like a wise sort of Native American barbarian braids. He just looks so cool. I loved how they gave him the long hair. Well, since that head sculpt came out, we'll look at this head sculpt. Okay, and all the pieces just fell out. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And here's like the Magneto head sculpt when he's in the shadows. And just, oh, look at the back of the helmet. I forgot about that too. He has these nice little purple stripes there. And even the little figurine that sticks out of his helmet reminds me of Mega Man. I think it's like Scissors Man or whatever. But sort of like that design. Just like that cool little unique emblem that sticks out of his helmet. They actually give you a empty helmet, which I love that, but I wish you could just take his helmet off over his hair. Maybe if they would have given a head sculpt like that, where, because in the original Toy Biz figure, you could just remove the helmet and you could put it over his hair. So if they would have given a different head sculpt where his hair was like skinny and the helmet could fit over the hair, that would have been cool too. I just like being able to remove the helmet and put it back on. I don't know about you guys, as this just falls all over the place. Let me put that there so it's not going to slide. But yeah, so you get a dark head sculpt. So you get 1, 2, 3 different head sculpts and an empty helmet, which is great. So let's take a look at the figure too. So that's a mistake too. They're missing the shoulder pads. So in terms of design, the Age of Apocalypse Magneto has purple shoulder pads, and I saw that the new Hasbro figure that came out had that. I just haven't received that figure yet. So let me see if I can find it in the comic books so you guys can get a better look at him. Even the gauntlets are different. So take a look at his boots. They're real thick. They're not form-fitting. If you look at his gloves there, they're real thick. And the original Toy Biz figure was just like that. And as I said, he also has shoulder pads underneath his cape. Let me see if I can find that in the comic too so you guys can see that as well. So it's a little bit disappointing that, you know, such an expensive figure, they should be completely accurate. There's an image of him there too. See if you can see his shoulder pad right there. It's underneath the cape. And the new Hasbro version of Wave 2, the Colossus Wave, which some people have, some people don't. Like you can see that Magneto has the shoulder pads underneath. So that's slightly Disappointing that he doesn't have them under his cape here, but that's fine. I can understand why they didn't do that. They're probably going to reuse this mold anyhow and make the traditional version of Magneto as well, but that's fine. The cape does have a wire on it, so you can put it in dynamic poses as you would with Batman. It looks like the same body sculpt as the Jim Lee Cyclops and Wolverine. So there's a look from the back, so you guys can get a look at that. Amazing articulation, everything you would want. Complete movement in the shoulder. We can go 360 degrees. There's a butterfly joint up in there. We got the double jointed elbows, which are my favorite. Full rotation in the wrist. There is a hinge. You just want to be very careful because that's small and you just don't want to snap that off. What else do we got here that you guys would be interested in? Legs go up that far. Knees go down. We got the double joint, which I love in the knee. Full ankle movement. We got up and down. We have a pivot. Back and forth. We even have toe articulation, if you're a fan of that, which is really going back to the old school Toy Biz overly articulated Marvel Legends. Let's check out the head movement. Not too much motion in the head because of the hair, but he's on a ball joint, and we got the double ball joint for the Mafex, which is what they like to do. Let's put his unhelmeted head on so you guys can get a good look at that. And that fits on there nicely. And he just looks, look at how regal and just awesome he looks. He just looks like a true leader of the X-Men. I love this head sculpt, just beautiful. With his long hair. I'm not sure if I'm going to leave it with the helmet on or off. That's always the question. And here he is with the sort of dark head. Let's see if I can get that on there. So there's sort of like the mysterious, like in the darkness Magneto, which he's portrayed. Also, the cool thing about this head sculpt is it's very narrow, like in between the design. So he always looks shadowed, which is really cool. I just always love that design. I was never a big fan that they changed the cape to red in the Age of Apocalypse Magneto, but that's fine. I am a fan of the purple cape. Purple is the color of royalty in the color wheel. So we have different hands. We get, we get 1, 2, 3, 4 different sets, 5 different sets of hands. So you get these hands. They're open, grabby hands, nice metallic metal. There's just even detail like in the gloves, so that's pretty cool. Even more open hands, just doing some magnetic stuff there. See those? And then, I mean, it's like they give you too many accessories these days. I just liked how Toy Biz had just the articulated fingers, and then you could do whatever you wanted. And then we have some power hands, so like energy effect hands. So I'll probably put these on the figure when I display it. As you can see, I'll do that for you guys right now. And then, of course, you get the fisted hands that come on the figure. Sorry, you can't see that because of my big hands. Huge digits there. But yeah, I'm going to throw this on for you. Yeah, so you get some cool effects there. You can do some like fun poses. The master of magnetism himself, and just the great dynamic of him versus Apocalypse, the two most powerful mutants in the world versus one another. Look at that! Look at how great that looks. Yeah, so if you look at Magneto's boots and his gloves, they're just like the traditional design, the traditional form-fitting design, where in the Age of Apocalypse, they're a little bit more bulkier, sort of like military boots. Uh, oh, also there is a thigh, there is thigh movement as well. So if you want to turn the leg that way, there is no calf cut, which sometimes we get. So, but I love this figure. I'm so happy to have it in my collection. Mafex is some of my favorite. And there's the empty helmet, which this empty helmet is a really hard plastic. Where traditionally with the Toy Biz and the Hasbro figures and the Marvel Legends line, it's very soft. So this is hard, and you could break that easily. So I'd be careful. I would be careful with that. So a little bit of comparison. Here he is with the current Hasbro traditional Magneto. And as you can see, this body sculpt is a lot thinner. Hasbro used a very thin body sculpt compared to Mafex. He's a little bit more muscular, as he was in the comic book. So there is that Magneto. Here he is next to the Rebel Tech Magnet Hands Magneto. And I always loved this figure, the Rebel Tech, and this is a custom cape I bought online. This is not the cape that came with the Rebel Tech figure. So this is more of like a Capcom style of Magneto. And I don't like Rebel Tech because of the joints. The joints are, oh, man down. But the joints are super flimsy, as you can see. Like, look at that, his arm just falls right down because it has these tiny crappy joints right there, and it just looks bad, but the sculpt is really good. So if you're into the sort of Capcom Magneto, there's that. And we also have, this is my very first Marvel Legends Toy Biz Magneto, and I just love this figure. It's a little bit bulky because they just reuse Iron Man's body to make Magneto, but I don't know, it just always worked for me. And he always looked really cool. And you could remove his helmet, just like that. And I just love, it's such a simple feature. And I know that they have to alter the head sculpt to do that, but I just loved how you could always take his helmet off and put it back on instead of having 8 million head swaps. So that's what the traditional Wave 1 Toy Biz Marvel Legends Magneto looks like compared to this new Mafex. So in conclusion, friends, if you love the Age of Apocalypse as much as I do, I highly recommend you get this figure. I got mine from Big Bad Toy Store on pre-order for a good price. It was around $100. Typically on the aftermarket, they're way more than that. So I'm surprised to receive this today. It just came. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. And God bless you all, friends. Magneto, Age of Apocalypse, Mafex. Peace.